Keefer.
Keefer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for coming out. I would like to start by thanking Shumei for this opportunity to show my work and give the talk. What do I have to say about my art? I could talk about how I make it, the process of layering paint and varnish and so on, but that's not really what I want to talk about. If you're interested in that, you can ask me later. I could talk about how great an artist I am or interesting person I am. I could go on about my 5-point plan on how to get rich off art in 10 years. I wish. After all, that is the point of being an artist, right? The quest for the magic land of making a living off making art. No, today I'm actually not going to talk about art at all. I'm going to talk about the Internet of Things, the dangers of artificial intelligence, and chemtrails. I'm just kidding. Everybody was swinging. I actually have many things to talk about, or questions to ask, actually. I do want to discuss the paradox of being an artist. That's been my life. But first, let's define what an artist is. So I'm going to ask for any audience feedback at this point. Anybody who has input on what an artist is. There's no right or wrong answer.
Oh, good looking and charming helps.
Ah, thanks. I thank you. I'm assuming you're talking about me, and that's a little bit egotistical, but anybody else?
Artists engage in acts of creativity.
Nice. That is true.
They make things.
Artists make things.
Observes the world and tries to reflect their understanding.
I like that one.
An artist is somebody who says he is.
Or she.
Right.
Yeah.
An artist has to make art or music or something, right?
Something creative.
Yeah. Well, after thinking about this question, I figured out that to me an artist, and this is the kind of artist that I am, is one who asks deep questions. Mainly, why am I here? And just what the hell is all this about? I get the earth, nature. It's a mystery, but one that I connect with on a deep level. It's the constructs of modern humanity that perplex me. So by the paradox of being an artist, I mean the irony of being deeply insecure and having the need to create art and the desire for others not just to look at it, but want to buy it too. What the heck? Who came up with this concept? That's a recipe for a lifetime of struggle and frustration. Unrequited ambition. It's a roller coaster of success and failure at best. So let me just say, I was born in 1968 in New Orleans. I was born into a world I did not understand. I mean, I really did not understand what was going on, most especially the school part. It's funny that at the time children become what we call self-aware, we toss them into these places, the modern school system. And let's face it, they are not about learning, they are about the crushing of the creative spirit. And that was my experience anyway. And it worked. I was partially crushed. But my spirit was resilient enough to survive, and after 12 years of mandatory schooling, I was still an artist. But I was deeply damaged by the experience. That is the difficulty of being sensitive. Well, there are a lot of things that were damaging to me as a child, and that is a long story. Let's just say I did not have two loving, devoted parents and a harmonious home life. I was a classic latchkey kid that was emotionally neglected, and I did not connect with school, so I spent a lot of time in imaginary worlds, including television, lots of television. I think at times I felt closer to Gilligan than to my harried, stressed out mom. I still like Gilligan. What a sad thing that so much of our adult lives are spent working through the damage inflicted by a world when we were children. I do think there is some truth to the saying that what does not kill you will make you stronger, but I would say that it's unfortunate that we live in a society where this has such relevance. So, what makes an artist? Is it nature or nurture? Is one born an artist, or does one make a decision to become one? Does anybody have anything to say about that?
Yes.
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 Yes, and all of the above. Okay. It wasn't a decision I made to be an artist. It's just what happened. I could go out on a limb and say that I always was one. Pablo Picasso said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up." I think there is truth to that, though I would say some kids are more drawn to art than others. Honestly, at times I wish I had had a simpler path, one without the self-exploration, existential angst, deep sensitivity, struggles with drugs and alcohol, and so on. But no such luck. I am what I am, no matter how tired of myself I might get at times. So the need to create art is one thing, but the desire to show it is another. Sometimes I really just wish, so I just have to say that even this very friendly environment is nerve-wracking to me. So sometimes I just wish that I did not care about showing the art part. That I could just create it and lean it against a wall, or give it to somebody who wanted it, or just continue to paint over the same 5 canvases until they become too heavy to lift and then burn them. But I'm still cursed with this ambition and the desire to have people see my art. What is this need for recognition and praise? Why should we place so much importance on what others think? I don't know that. If anybody else has input on that, I'd be happy to hear it. Yes?
I do, Nick. I think it's our innate desire to connect with one another. And linking it right in with what Bill was saying about world citizenship, that we're not individuals, we're interrelated, and that those of us who have the courage to express ourselves uniquely through art, others want to see it, others want to receive it, and get that there's only one guy on the planet that would put that set of problems and colors and choices together to make that piece. So I think it's an ability to express our unique view of life.
Thanks.
But, sure.
Anybody else? Why do people need recognition and praise from others when it comes to the stuff they do?
Well, probably not everybody does, but most people who have all the psychological equipment that is relevant to being human have elements of that.
It's a human trait.
Well, some more than others,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is a human trait.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I think those are good ones, so thank you. I don't know why I do. I just want to say, this is a bit heady, but I've had issues with galleries and the way the world is right now around art. I would like to be in a good gallery and have them sell my work, and all I have to do is get them the art and receive checks. That sounds great. But my experience with galleries hasn't been great. I mean, when it comes down to galleries, it's really the bottom line. It's not about how good your work is. It's about whether it sells. And from my experience, it's not necessarily the good art that's selling the most. So that can be very discouraging. I think the current commercial art system is intentionally or not developed into a system that kind of excludes economically disadvantaged artists and people that work for a living and do art on the side. It seems like art school graduates and established artists, you know, really do well in that situation. They know how to play the game. I think the system also benefits galleries a bit disproportionately, considering they just provide a space and advertising, you know, and a name. And I think it's kind of a lifeless mode of connecting artists with society, because the artists are only involved peripherally, you know. So I think also that the upper echelons of the art world have become increasingly heady and intellectual, you know, which makes sense in the times we are in. It's not interesting to me. The current art establishment is about as establishment as it gets. It all makes sense in a society where money is always the bottom line. People with serious money are looking to invest in expensive art, and most other people just want a special piece that says nothing, fits over the couch, and goes with the decor. The less creative society gets as a whole, the less creative the art the society will produce. I think it's like cookie cutter art for cookie cutter people in a lot of the galleries I've seen. To me, an artist should be an anti-establishment person. The true artist should fill the niche of the rebel and the dreamer. So the dreamer these days, I mean, when I say that, what do you think about? Anybody?
Somebody that's, you know, tapping into like a really deep sense of consciousness, or, you know, somebody that wants to be able to like see beyond what's just like right in front of them. You know, it's like there isn't really any other way to say it except for just beyond, or, you know, like next dimension or next level kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the cave art, 30,000, 40,000 years old, some of it.
Right.
Where people are taking what to them is an immediate experience and somewhere or other reaching out beyond themselves. You know, there's theories that we're trying to conjure divine powers for the hunt, which is probably true, but there's still that sense of wanting to reach out from one individual experience to something bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good
It
one.
wasn't in a gallery either. That's
Yeah.
not what they thought.
Thanks. Anybody else?
I have the sense of a dreamer being someone I would really resonate with, but that's like anti-establishment, unfortunately, given the current sort of conceptual state of the world. Although I think if you go out and actually talk to individual people, there's not this, I don't know, fall into the party line that us versus them kind of thinking. I don't know exactly what I'm saying here, but you know, like them being conventional, falling in party line, us being creative, dreamer, alternative types. So, yeah, the rebels, maybe.
Right. I mean, I would think maybe in a broader societal context, the dreamer might have, being a dreamer might have a bit of a negative context at this point. You know, like someone with their heads in the clouds, ungrounded in reality. Maybe a fool even. But I think, as you said, Rich, that a dreamer used to hold a really important place in society. Dreamer, the artist, the one who kind of manifests reality in a certain sense. But I do think an artist needs to be a dreamer. I also think, unfortunately, an artist should be a bit of a snob. I know I am when it comes to art. And maybe a bit of an egoist, I mean, you need a big ego to hide your insecurity, and to think that everyone should be interested in what you say or do or create. So I guess, what am I trying to get at here? There's a lot going on. I might be trying to say that the word artist is actually being tossed around too much, I mean, everybody's an artist now. You just have to post something on Instagram and you're an artist. I think an artist should have an artist's sensibility. I recall when I was a young man, some guy criticized me, perhaps deservedly, on my cocky attitude at the time about being an artist. He said, "You think you're an artist, and are you making a living off your art?" And I guess he thought that an artist needs to sell work to get the stamp of legitimacy. And I suppose that's one way to categorize things, but I thought of Van Gogh, Gauguin, Monet, many other artists who are now very famous and epitomize the word artist even. And we know they had very little success in the art world when they were alive. Ironically, now rich people get richer trading their art back and forth. So that's kind of funny. Of course, anyone with an inkling to create would like to make money off their art. What a great gig. But what is the cost of that to the artist? Henry Thoreau said, not about art, but he said, "The price that we have to pay for money is paid in liberty." From what I have seen, part of the joy in creating art is exactly that it's not what you do for money. I mean, when you have to think about what people want instead of feeling what you need to paint, it makes it a different thing, in my experience. I have sold art over my lifetime, but have found that the energy needed to get and keep that ball rolling was more than I had to expend and still create real art. Not to mention the gallery game, which is a very dehumanizing process. Things have become skewed to the point that success as an artist is solely related to fame and fortune. Shouldn't there be a few things whose merit is not based on how much income it generates, and shouldn't art be one of those things? So for me, life as an artist has meant mostly making money in other ways and using blocks of time when I am flush with money and energy to make as much art I can in whatever space I have on hand. Thank you, Doug and Julia, for providing one of those spaces right now, and it's been great. And then I attempt to sell that art if I can in novel ways for prices that most people can afford, or sometimes actually just paint over it and start over.
So let's say that again.
I just paint over the piece.
Okay.
If it didn't sell or I've had it for too long, I mean, inventory.
Even if you love it and think it's...
Usually not the one I love. Sometimes, I feel later over time, I feel like, maybe this one wasn't that great, So I really want to create stuff that's really good. So if one's not there, I don't feel that bad about painting. Although at times I have looked back and been like, photos of it, and damn, that was pretty good actually. Maybe I shouldn't have painted over that one. Can I recreate it? So, let's see. I think it is, so as far as affordable prices, I do think it's strange that something that you really enjoy should be expected to pay so well, like about the exorbitant prices of art, I think that it should be affordable to all kinds of people, as long as the artist can make a bit of money. But that's just my opinion. I do think that new ideas about how art should inhabit our reality are needed and are arising, like Shumei. And obviously in this times we need to think of new ways to exist and create more fulfilling lives on all levels. I do sometimes wonder, I think about a lot of different aspects of art, and I like to think of different sides of everything and not limit myself to a narrow perspective. So I wonder, in art, is there really any more ground to be broken? I mean, is there anything else to be said by art? Do we really need another painting of a bird on a branch or a nude woman or whatever? So my question to you is art important today?
More than ever.
Yes, is that the consensus?
Well, see, I think everyone's a dreamer, and they don't have in their quotidian world much to dream about. And art can allow that, whether it's a book or music or painting or sculpture, what have you, music. So I think more than ever we need to have dream prods, dream nudges. And so art is the guy that does that.
Thank you, that's really eloquent. And that helps me. Anybody else? Yes.
I think of a quote that's attributed to Winston Churchill during the war when the people in his government said, we need more money for arms, let's cut out this arts stuff. And he said, well then, what are we fighting for?
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, it's that dream. It's that dream, and there's some I'm quoting some mind props they don't know a lot about, but the gist of it is like, to get out of the thing we're in now, we've got to create a new dream, a new consensual dream. And your art is like, you say to yourself, it's recycled imagery or popular culture into this mythic juice that is just this really, it's this fertile ground for reconnecting with elements, for reconnecting with something beyond the pop and the fad and the culture that the art of today is stuck in. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we need art and we need artists. We need people that are willing to put feeling and vision into action and form.
Okay.
That's inspiring, I think, to everybody.
Thank you. Okay, you've all convinced me. Thank you. Sometimes I get a little discouraged and wonder if there's any point to making another painting. So, but that helps. So I can skip that part because you guys convinced me. So I have, without total intention, dedicated my life to being an artist. But because I have less and less desire to navigate this world and its craziness, I have to try to view success as an artist in my own context, which is very difficult because there's so much pressure to have success that I feel in a monetary way. That's something I really struggle. I have big hang-ups around art and money. So, and that shows in the fact that I don't sell any lately. I think if you have a conflict, it's going to show up in some way. So I'm hoping to work that out. So by viewing art in my own, being an artist in my own context, I have to think that, thinking too much about success is kind of maddening and perhaps unproductive for me. For me, great art comes from finding that flow, and that flow comes from a place of not thinking. One could call it the continual moment of creation. That moment, for me, is perhaps the best part of making art. I feel that conceptual art is lacking in what I think art must have to be good, which is heart. There's art and heart, and they go together. I have mixed feelings, though. I think that anyone who wants to create art should do that. The more the better. It's just the artist in me wants it to be good art. And I want people to be able to see what is good and what is not so good. It's complicated. I guess I think that the true artist should walk the line. That line between darkness and light, happiness and misery, madness and sanity, and yes, heart and mind. This is a difficult road to walk, but it's the path less taken and the one I chose. I would like each piece I create to be like a portal into a reality that is unseen but just as real as the one we believe to be true at this moment. It is only through reaching for the sublime that I can hope to see through the veils of obscuring illusion and pierce to the heart of what might be real. Thank you. And if you have questions, you could just ask me in person. Because I'm ready to go.
Come back in here a minute.
Everybody likes to hear the answers.
This audience participation is worth continuing. So I'll have some questions. For this guy.
Well, Nick, I feel like I want to tell the whole room that I feel so privileged that you were also the most devoted carpenter house, that the addition that we just built. But I also feel like so many times I should have said, just paint this wall a color. I should have said, here's a million colors, do what you want. I mean, I get that, but I was curious if you could maybe, with various paintings around the room, say some of your thoughts and feelings or motivations or expressions.
Okay.
Beyond what's just right there visually.
Do you have one you'd like me to?
Well, I haven't gone up and looked at this one closely, but the main inquiry that's coming out of me looking at that is the people at the threshold of that arch. And I can't see, are they coming, are they going? And I'm just curious some of your thinking behind that when you put it together.
Well, for a while I got into this sort of subterranean kind of thing. I like playing with different levels and layers, horizontally and then some vertical. And I think it's just about, really, it's about the miracle of our planet and the reverence, that we should have for it. That's how I could sum it up.
It's captured there, and for me, the interrelatedness of the mountaintops and I also see our local area of the aquifer and the mountaintops and our ability to climb to the peaks as well as to go to the depths. Thank you.
Also, I guess I would say that there's a lot unseen too that we don't really think about a lot that's underneath us going on. And that's an important part of what's happening too.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And probably every work here, there's some reference to nature and the natural world. Could be geology, like this one has a lot of geology in it.
Yes.
And so my question is, how did that come about in your life?
I've always been super attracted and connected to nature, and even though I grew up in cities, and it took me a long time to get out of cities and really finally realize I don't like them, you know?
Yeah.
But I always retreated, whether backpacking or camping or whatever, in any way that I could.
So you found, when you were growing up, you found ways to get away from the city?
Oh yeah, I had to.
Did you have anyone that helped you do that? Any mentors or individuals that helped you on that way?
I grew up partly in Utah, in Salt Lake City, and my mom and one of her boyfriends were into camping, and you know, there's a big outdoor kind of scene in Utah, so,
Sure. Yeah.
and a close connection to mountains and desert, so I think that really helped instill that in me. But I think I was always super interested in nature, and even as a little kid, you know, I remember getting lost, you know, because I wandered off to go swim in the river when I was 7, you know. It's lucky I didn't drown, but you know, I got lost instead. So it's just, yeah, something that was in me, and yeah, it comes out in my art. Anybody else?
No need to frame?
I don't think these need frame. I did frame those, a couple of skulls, you know, because I thought they could use it. But yeah, I figured if people wanted to frame them, they wanted to, they could do it themselves. And oftentimes people wouldn't want the same thing I put on it anyway. So yeah, and framing's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good decision.
Thanks.
How did you develop your shininess?
It's just, I put a lot of layers of varnish and paint, and I sand in between layers of varnish and paint. So it's a mixture of collage, image transfer, paint, varnish, and sanding as I go. So some of these paintings might have, you know, many layers of paint and varnish and paper, you know.
Very nice.
Thanks. And then it's just a waterborne polyurethane finish. Am I done?
What are some of the difficulties you have with galleries, because your work is just very, you know, totally controlling?
I think,
Scale of galleries. It's very polished and very.
thank you. I think, like for me, the idea of going to, let's say, Denver and schlepping around and trying to talk to galleries and get them to like my work or even consider looking at it is like the last thing I'd ever want to do. So that's the problem with that. Yeah, but you know, how do you get one of those? I just, you know,
Judy's new career.
If anybody wants to take it on, I'm totally into it. But I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a marketer. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
So for me, like trying to get myself into that mode, it just doesn't work. So if it comes along, and I've been in a few galleries, but galleries are so dense with other people's artwork that, you know, it's hard to stand out. And also then the price goes really high. So you know, it becomes inaccessible to so many people.
Well, we go to a lot of galleries, and I would say you're holding your own, and then some.
Thank you.
Nick, could you speak about the neighbors helping neighbors and that whole thing? It's on the wall, but.
Oh yeah, so this show is a benefit. So half the proceeds will go to Neighbors Helping Neighbors. And the prices are really cheap, so. There are opportunities, you know. And I'm doing that because I need to move inventory out. And I really want people to have my art. I don't need it just leaning against the wall, you know, so.
Which would make half of it a donation, because we're 501c3.